Hi everyone, welcome back to Living Wisdom and Dharma World. Today, we embark on a profound journey to explore the concept of emptiness, one of the central teachings of the Buddha. Emptiness, or suññatā in Pali, is often misunderstood, but understanding it can profoundly transform how we see ourselves and the world around us. Let's dive in. Part 1. What is emptiness? First, let's define emptiness. Emptiness does not mean nothingness. Instead, it refers to the absence of inherent, independent existence in all phenomena. The Buddha taught that everything we perceive arises due to causes and conditions. Therefore, nothing exists independently or permanently. Every phenomenon arises in dependence on a combination of many causes and conditions. Without a minor or secondary cause or condition, the phenomenon will not arise. This explains that all phenomena are composite and do not contain an independent individual entity. Emptiness is the inherent nature of all phenomena. Take, for example, a tree. It appears solid and independent, but if we examine it, we see that its existence depends on the seed, the soil, water, sunlight, and time. Remove any one of these, and the tree would not exist. This interdependent nature is what the Buddha referred to as emptiness. History of the human world shows us that even the mightiest figures are not immune to the truths of emptiness and impermanence. Consider the great emperors and monarchs who seemed all-powerful in their time. Yet now, they are mere phantoms in the pages of history. The Buddha reminds us in the Dhammapada, all things are devoid of a self. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. The analogies of mirror and dream are perfect examples of emptiness. The mirror analogy illustrates that emptiness is like a mirror. It reflects all forms, but holds on to none. Just as phenomena arise and pass away within the framework of emptiness, leaving no permanent trace. The dream analogy conveys that all phenomena are like a dream or illusion. They appear vividly real, but dissolve upon waking, revealing their lack of intrinsic substance. Part 2. Why is emptiness significant? Understanding emptiness is crucial because it liberates us from attachment and suffering. We suffer because we cling to the illusion of permanence, to people, possessions, and even our sense of self. By realizing that all things are empty of inherent existence, we can let go of our attachments and find freedom. Imagine this glass. If we believe it's permanent, we suffer when it breaks. But if we understand its emptiness, its impermanent and dependent nature, we can appreciate it while it lasts and accept its eventual change. Neuroscience supports this understanding. Studies have shown that the brain constructs the sense of self through interconnected neural processes. There is no single, unchanging self in the brain, only dynamic processes that change over time. This resonates with the Buddha's teaching that the self is an illusion. Part 3. Practical application of emptiness. How do we bring these teachings into our lives? Through mindfulness and meditation. Start by observing your thoughts and emotions. Notice how they arise and pass away, dependent on conditions. This practice reveals their impermanence and emptiness. For instance, when anger arises, see it as a temporary phenomenon. Instead of clinging to it, observe its causes and conditions. This understanding allows us to respond with wisdom rather than react impulsively. Part 4. The Buddha's teachings on emptiness. To deepen our understanding, let's turn to two profound discourses. The Suññatā Sutta, the Lesser Discourse on Emptiness, and the Suññatā Sutta, the greater discourse on emptiness. The progressive realization of emptiness in the suññatā Sutta. In the suññatā Sutta, the Buddha teaches emptiness, suññatā, as a gradual and progressive realization. He begins by directing practitioners to cultivate physical and mental solitude, guiding them to notice the absence of distractions in their immediate environment. This preliminary step lays the foundation for deeper meditative insights by removing external disturbances, allowing the mind to focus on subtler truths. The Buddha advises the practitioner to shift their attention from coarse, external perceptions to more refined states. He illustrates this progression by encouraging the abandonment of attachments to everyday concepts and environments. He states, "Here, Ananda, the bhikkhu, not attending to the perception of the village, not attending to the perception of people, attends to the oneness dependent on the perception of the forest." His mind enters into that perception of the forest and acquires confidence, steadiness, and resolution. This step emphasizes the importance of withdrawing from sensory engagement and conceptual proliferation. By focusing on the simplicity and tranquility of the forest, the practitioner begins to recognize the absence of mundane concerns, allowing the mind to settle into a more unified and spacious awareness. Peeling away layers of perception and attachment. The Buddha describes the journey of realizing emptiness as a process akin to peeling layers from an onion. With each layer removed, the practitioner progresses toward deeper insights into the nature of reality. Initially, this involves letting go of external attachments, such as sensory pleasures and conceptual fixations, and then moving inward to examine the clinging tendencies of the mind itself. At each stage, the practitioner is invited to see through the illusory nature of perceptions, recognizing their impermanent anicca, unsatisfactory, dukkha, and selfless, anatta nature. The Buddha frames this realization of emptiness as dependent on an understanding of the conditional nature of all phenomena. This is empty of self, or of what belongs to self. This statement underscores the insight that neither the external world nor the internal sense of I or mine has any intrinsic existence. What we perceive as self is merely a construct arising from conditions destined to pass away. The gradual approach to ultimate emptiness. The progressive method ensures that the practitioner deepens their understanding of reality step by step, preventing them from becoming overwhelmed by profound insights. The Buddha repeatedly emphasizes the importance of steady practice, urging practitioners to proceed at a pace that allows for the stabilization of their insight. He understands, whatever disturbances there might be dependent on the perception of the village, those are not present here. This guidance highlights the incremental nature of the process. By gradually relinquishing coarse distractions and subtle attachments, the practitioner becomes increasingly attuned to the deeper layers of reality. Ultimately, the culmination of this practice is the recognition of the ultimate emptiness of all phenomena, a state beyond conceptualization, devoid of self, and free from inherent existence. The Buddha articulates this final realization as a state in which the mind, having abandoned all clinging, dwells in perfect equanimity and clarity. He understands, there is this, there is the base of this, there is that which is empty of this. This phrase signifies a profound insight into the interdependent nature of all phenomena and their inherent emptiness. Emptiness as liberation. The suññatā Sutta presents emptiness not as an abstract philosophy, but as a lived experience that unfolds progressively. By peeling away layers of external and internal attachment, the practitioner moves closer to the heart of the Buddha's teachings. This gradual method ensures that insights into impermanence, suffering, and non-self are integrated into the practitioner's understanding, leading ultimately to liberation, nibbana. Through this process, the Buddha provides a clear and practical roadmap for realizing the profound truth of emptiness. The Suññatā Sutta, Emptiness in Relationships. In the Suññatā Sutta, the greater discourse on emptiness, the Buddha offers profound insight into the nature of relationships, highlighting how clinging to people, roles, and identities, such as my friend, my family, or my identity, leads to suffering, dukkha. The Sutta emphasizes that relationships, like all phenomena, are inherently empty, suññatā, because they arise and exist based on transient, conditional factors. The Buddha teaches that clinging to relationships arises from a misunderstanding of their impermanent and dependent nature. For example, he points out the dangers of attending to concepts like man or woman as solid or permanent categories, which reinforces attachment, craving, and a false sense of self. Instead, he advises turning the mind toward emptiness. Because if one does not attend to the perception of village or to the perception of man or woman, but attends instead to the perception of emptiness, the mind settles and becomes unified. This teaching encourages practitioners to look beyond superficial labels and roles, recognizing the insubstantial and conditioned nature of relationships. When the mind focuses on the perception of emptiness rather than the constructs it habitually clings to, it becomes calm, unified, and free from suffering caused by attachment. Clinging, dependency, and transient conditions. The Buddha's teaching on emptiness in relationships is rooted in the principle of dependent origination, paticca samuppada, which explains that all phenomena arise due to causes and conditions. Relationships, too, are not independent or fixed. They are conditioned by factors such as time, proximity, shared experiences, and mutual dependency. These factors are impermanent and ever-changing. By failing to recognize this impermanence, we create unrealistic expectations, leading to possessiveness and disappointment when relationships inevitably shift or dissolve. The Buddha explains that such clinging binds us to suffering. Whatever is subject to arising is subject to cessation. This fundamental truth applies equally to relationships. Understanding that relationships lack an enduring essence allows us to engage with others without clinging or possessiveness. Compassionate detachment in relationships. The Buddha's teaching on emptiness does not advocate abandoning relationships, but instead calls for a transformation in how we approach them. Recognizing their empty nature enables us to cultivate compassionate detachment, a state of genuine care without attachment or ownership. This approach allows us to act with kindness and understanding, free from the distortions of ego and clinging. The Buddha's advice to shift attention away from perceptions of man or woman toward the perception of emptiness invites practitioners to transcend labels and conditioned views of self and others. By doing so, we can see relationships more clearly, fostering mutual respect and care rooted in reality rather than illusion. This aligns with his broader teaching in Digha Nikaya. Monks, you should train yourselves thus. We will remain pervading one quarter with a mind imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, the third, and the fourth. Thus, the entire world will be pervaded with loving kindness. By combining loving kindness with insight into emptiness, we can develop a balanced relationship with others that transcends ego-driven attachment while remaining deeply compassionate. Transcending the illusions that bind us. When we cling to relationships as sources of identity, security, or permanence, we become entangled in illusions that perpetuate suffering. The Buddha teaches that the path to liberation lies in seeing through these illusions, understanding that relationships, like all phenomena, are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and without a fixed self. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. In the Mahāsānāda Sutta, the Buddha offers this encouragement. When a bhikkhu abides much in the perception of emptiness, his mind becomes free from distortions of craving, aversion, and delusion. By applying this teaching, we can free ourselves from the false narratives that bind us to suffering in relationships. This does not mean rejecting relationships, but engaging with them from a place of clarity, equanimity, and freedom. Integrating emptiness into daily life. To integrate the Buddha's teachings on emptiness into our lives, we must continually examine our attachments to roles, identities, and relationships. This involves 1. Mindful reflection, observing how clinging to concepts like my friend or my family influences our thoughts and actions. 2. Meditation on emptiness, contemplating the conditioned, impermanent nature of relationships to deepen our insight into their true nature. 3. Cultivating loving kindness, approaching others with unconditional goodwill, free from expectations or possessiveness. Through these practices, we develop a clearer perception of reality, transcending the illusions that bind us to suffering. As the Buddha emphasizes, recognizing emptiness does not make relationships meaningless. Instead, it enables us to engage with others authentically, with genuine care and understanding, unclouded by ego or attachment. Part 5. Scientific evidence supporting the concept of emptiness. This profound insight is not just philosophical. Modern scientific discoveries also align with this teaching and echo the Buddha's ancient wisdom, providing a fascinating perspective on interdependence. In quantum physics, particles exist not as isolated entities, but as probabilities, influenced by interactions with other particles and fields. This aligns with the Buddha's teaching that nothing exists independently. Physicist Carlo Rovelli, a leading voice in quantum mechanics, describes reality as relational. Things exist only in their interactions with other things, not as standalone entities. They arise and exist in relation to other particles and conditions. This dynamic interdependence mirrors the Buddha's teaching on emptiness and dependent origination. Similarly, neuroscience shows through brain imaging studies that our sense of self arises from multiple interconnected brain networks. The default mode network, often active during self-referential thinking, fluctuates constantly, challenging the idea of a permanent I and supporting the Buddhist view of the self as a mental construct. Additionally, findings in ecology and systems biology highlight the interconnectedness of ecosystems and organisms. For example, forests function as systems where trees, fungi, animals, and microorganisms interact, illustrating the emptiness of individual entities. Part 6. Emptiness illustrated in the Heart Sutra. The Heart Sutra, Prajna Paramita Hridaya, is one of the most profound and concise teachings on emptiness in Mahayana Buddhism. It encapsulates the essence of the Buddha's teachings on the nature of reality, guiding us to transcend dualistic thinking and recognize the interdependent nature of all phenomena. The famous declaration, "Form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. A form is not other than emptiness," by Avalokitesvara, the bodhisattva of compassion, lies at the heart of the sutra. At first glance, this statement may seem paradoxical, but it offers a profound insight into the nature of reality. Form is emptiness signifies that all forms, whether physical objects, mental phenomena, or experiences, lack inherent, independent existence. They are empty of a fixed essence because they arise through causes and conditions, which are themselves impermanent and dependent. Emptiness is form reminds us that emptiness is not a nihilistic void, but the dynamic, interdependent essence of all phenomena. Without emptiness, form could not arise or exist. This teaching dissolves the false dichotomy between existence and non-existence, revealing that reality transcends such binary categorizations. The Heart Sutra declares, "In emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no mental formations, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind in no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no objects of mind." This passage systematically deconstructs the components of existence, including the sense organs, sense objects, and the aggregates, skandhas, asserting that, when seen through the lens of ultimate reality, these components are empty of independent essence. This is significant because the Buddha's teaching on the five aggregates, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, reveals the illusion of a permanent self. By recognizing their emptiness, we understand that the self is merely a construct arising from these interconnected, impermanent processes. Showing emptiness and the path to liberation, the sutra declares, "There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so forth up to no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. There is no suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. There is no wisdom, and no attainment, and no non-attainment." At first glance, this appears to contradict the Buddha's Four Noble Truths, but it is not a denial of these truths, or rather, it affirms that they too are empty of inherent existence. This teaching emphasizes that even the Dharma itself is merely a tool and not an ultimate reality. The practical implication of this insight is that it helps us avoid attachment to spiritual concepts. The ultimate goal is not to cling to teachings, but to use them as a raft to cross the river of suffering and then let go. The sutra concludes with the mantra, "Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha." Translated, this means, gone, gone, gone beyond, gone altogether beyond. Awakening, hail. This mantra encapsulates the journey of realizing emptiness. Gone signifies transcending attachment to forms and appearances. Gone beyond represents moving beyond dualistic thinking and recognizing interdependence. Altogether beyond reflects fully integrating the understanding of emptiness into one's life. Finally, awakening symbolizes realizing enlightenment and freedom from suffering. Why is this teaching transformative? Understanding emptiness in the context of the Heart Sutra transforms how we relate to ourselves and the world. It offers freedom from attachment by recognizing the emptiness of phenomena, which helps loosen the grip of craving and clinging, the root causes of suffering. It fosters compassion in action by revealing that all beings share the same empty, interdependent nature, allowing us to develop greater empathy and compassion. Finally, it cultivates equanimity by teaching us to remain balanced amid life's ups and downs, seeing them as fleeting and interdependent phenomena. The Heart Sutra is not merely a philosophical text. It is a guide to liberation. By meditating on its teachings, we can transcend the illusions of permanence and separation, embracing life with wisdom and compassion. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. This profound insight is not an abstract idea, but a living truth that can transform how we see and engage with reality. Conclusion: embracing emptiness as the path to liberation. The teachings on emptiness, whether explored through the Buddha's discourses, scientific insights, or profound scriptures like the Heart Sutra, offer us a transformative lens to understand life and reality. Far from being a concept of nihilism or negation, emptiness invites us to see the interdependent, impermanent, and conditional nature of all things. It dissolves illusions of separateness and permanence, revealing a profound truth. We are not isolated entities, but deeply interconnected with everything around us. Understanding emptiness is not merely an intellectual exercise, it is a path to liberation. By recognizing the emptiness of self and phenomena, we begin to let go of attachment, craving, and aversion, the root causes of suffering. This realization does not strip life of its meaning, but enriches it by allowing us to engage with the world in a freer, more compassionate way. Emptiness teaches us to embrace life's impermanence, find joy in the present moment, and respond to challenges with equanimity and wisdom. Through practical application, such as mindfulness, meditation, and the cultivation of loving kindness, we can integrate the understanding of emptiness into our daily lives. When we see emotions, relationships, and possessions as transient and conditioned, we open ourselves to deeper acceptance and a more harmonious way of being. The Buddha's gradual path of realizing emptiness, as outlined in the Kulasunada Sutta and Mahasunada Sutta, assures us that this profound insight is accessible to anyone willing to practice with dedication and patience. Scientific discoveries, like the relational nature of particles and the impermanence of the self in neuroscience, echo this ancient wisdom, bridging timeless teachings with contemporary understanding. Together, they affirm that emptiness is not an abstract idea, but a fundamental aspect of existence that, when understood, can lead to profound transformation. As we conclude, let us remember the mantra of the Heart Sutra: Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasamgate, Bodhisvaha. Gone, gone, gone beyond. Gone altogether beyond. Awakening, hail. It reminds us of the journey to transcend attachment and dualistic thinking, moving toward awakening and ultimate freedom. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of emptiness. May this understanding inspire us to approach life with clarity, compassion, and wisdom, seeing beyond illusions to the heart of reality. As we walk the path of emptiness, we embrace a liberation that is not just freedom from suffering, but the ability to live fully, lovingly, and wisely in a world of interdependent wonder. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Feel free to leave a comment sharing the insights you gained. Your reflections may inspire and enlighten others on their own paths. Wishing you peace, happiness, and well-being.